Dart for Trice. That's Chase, and what a start for Cincinnati. And he has the football. Puts a move on. Bijan Robinson, he's got a hand. His first NFL touchdown. Gibbs out of the backfield right away. Oh, yeah, there's no question that he was grabbed. They got ridiculous. They got Gibbs one-on-one with Andrew Van Ginkel in space, and that was it. And this is, again, it's man-to-man. It's one-on-one, and he's underneath. He loses his balance. Block Bowers is one of those guys that has a huge... And this is...
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Fatboyz Dynasty Podcast, coming at you live, presented by the FantasyHolics Podcast Network, live on the FantasyHolics YouTube channel. I am Bo. That is Brant. Brant, we're coming at him, everybody, this week with our positional rankings, starting at the quarterback spot this week, working through the rest over the course of the next couple of weeks, give or take some minor scheduling conflicts that we may have to do something a little different. But this is kind of where it really all starts, where it all kind of shakes down. This is where our 2025 rankings start to come out and people get a chance to pick on us, hate on us, whatever you want to call it, because you're never going to be copacetic with every single other person because of personal thoughts and things of that nature. But I'm excited to hear your top 10. We haven't really talked at all about this. I'm sure a lot of the names are going to be similar, potentially just in different order, but I'm definitely excited to see how your top 10 goes, Brant.
Yeah, absolutely. These are our top 10 going into 2025. These are not necessarily our favorite dynasty rankings right now. This is going to be our season rankings. I want to make sure you guys know that. This will be, like I said, the 2025 season rankings as we look to shake it out, because there's still some things in dynasty landscape that we've got to see before we really can put out our rankings for the future. I do have an honorable mention for this year. I'm going to throw it out real fast. I got Justin Herbert as my honorable mention. He was in and out of my top 10. And I'm just like, you know what? Let me just make it easy. J. Herbert. So I am going to put Justin Herbert. I do think he has a great year this year. I think he will be knocking on the door of the top 10, just like he did last year.
Okay.
So we want to start at the bottom and work our way up.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to start with number 10 real fast. I got Mr. Bo Nix. I think he builds on his last year. He finished as number 8, so maybe he slides a little bit as the film is a little more out there, but I do think he continues to be a top 10 quarterback in that offense. I like what Sean Payton's got going, adding a few weapons for him in the draft and Patrick Bryant. And I know I'm missing Harvey and Dobbins there as well.
Okay. For me at number 10, I actually have Caleb Williams of the Chicago Bears. Again, this is a season where I feel like you can crown the Chicago Bears offseason champions. You and I are neck deep, Brant, in Bears country. And sometimes those fans can be a little overbearing with how great they think that team does every offseason. But this year you go out and you get a coach in Ben Johnson that is just at this point one of the most brilliant offensive minds in football. You completely revamp the offensive line to give Caleb Williams a chance to, stay in the pocket a little bit, let some of these wide receivers and skill position players get open. And then in the draft, you take your top 2 picks and you address 2 positions of need, not really of need, I guess, but to strengthen the offense. And Colston Loveland out of Michigan at the tight end position in the first round. And then you come back and get Luther Burden in the second, who, Brant, I think was an absolute steal for the Chicago Bears. And I think they got an absolute weapon in there. I think Caleb Williams really starts to make his ascension as a top tier quarterback in the league this year. I think as long as he plays 17 games, he's easily in the top 10. Put him at 10 just to be safe.
Absolutely. I do like Caleb Williams. I just couldn't get him in my rankings. He is not in my top 10 right now. I got to see how that shakes out. He is one of those guys, just like the dynasty landscape. I kind of got to see a little bit in action. I'm tired of this Bears country and everybody telling me how great they're going to be. I got to see a little bit of it before I can believe it.
Okay.
Number 9 is I'm going with one of the guys that you absolutely love, and that's Dak Prescott. As long as the man plays a full season, he's probably going to end up top 10. They added what could possibly be the best number 2 wide receiver that they've had with CeeDee Lamb and Dak healthy. I do believe Amari was there for at least a year, if not 2 with CD. I do think Pickens elevates that up a little bit. So I think Dak Prescott gets a little help, doesn't have to worry so much about getting hit and everything else. Going to get a little bit of help back there in the backfield as well. I think Dak Prescott regains that top 10 and is a number 9 quarterback.
Yeah, so Dak did not find my top 10, Brant, which is unusual because you're right. I am a guy that does tend to believe in Dak Prescott a little bit more. Maybe it's the being hurt by Dak before. Now, I have called my shot on Dak, and you did as well. We both called a bounce back for him, and I believe he finished as top 3 fantasy quarterback the year we called for that. But he's just too inconsistent for me. Brian Schottenheimer, I don't know what to expect as a coach there. And I really don't like George Pickens. Pickens in Pittsburgh. I think he's locker room cancer. I'm interested to see what happens if, CD gets 10 targets in a game, but George Pickens is 2. I just expect there to potentially be some turmoil there with that. I just don't like George Pickens is the biggest reason I can't get behind Dak Prescott. Now, I own Dak Prescott in a lot of leagues. So obviously, personally, I'm hoping for a bounce or a big year out of Dak. I just couldn't put my name to it, Brent. Couldn't do it. At 9, I have a guy you already talked about. I have Bo Nix at my 9th spot. Again, a lot of what you saw last year was what wasn't to love, right? He got a lot of his weapons back. Like you mentioned, he got Patrick in the draft. He got R.J. Harvey. They added J.K. Dobbins. That run game is going to be night and day to what it was last year. And you forgot the biggest offseason addition for the Denver Broncos, and that's Evan Ingram. I think when you talk about that Denver Broncos team last year, they had a lot of wide receivers step up when it mattered. Marvin Mims, Cortland Sutton, Devon Vele. A lot of these guys made really good plays for Bo Nix. I got to go watch Bo Nix torch my Falcons in person in Denver last year. Paid an awful lot of money to go do so. But the one thing that offense really lacked last year was a tight end they could just lean on. And I do think Evan Ingram's a top 10 tight end this year. I couldn't feel that way and not put Bo Nix in there after already having a top 10 season as a rookie. So Bo Nix does get back in there for me as well, Brant.
Okay, absolutely, absolutely. Number 8, I got a guy in Kyler Murray, and I'm adding him here because I think Marvin Harrison takes a huge jump this year. I think Trey McBride is going to do it all over. And if you got 2 guys in the top 10 that are catching the ball from you, and you possibly have a running back that's going to be top 20, top 25, and that could be either one of those running backs and Connor or Benson. I think you have to put Kyler Murray there, not to mention the rushing ability there. So I got Kyler Murray as number 8.
Yeah, so Kyler Murray was the one for me. If I would have known we were doing honorable mentions, he'd have been my guy because I do think there is an outside possibility for him to get there, especially when he is coming out on some podcasts and stuff this offseason saying, hey, I'm running the ball this year. It may not always be scripted, but I'm going to look to run a little bit more this year. I'm going to get some of that magic when some of these plays break down and just take off. So, that's always great for fantasy. So I definitely think that Kyler has a chance to be there, especially if he does utilize those legs a little more. Now, again, it does scare me a little bit how infrequent Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride had good games on the same week. So I'm nervous to see if that can be something that Kyler does routinely. But if that happens, yeah, you're talking sky's the limit for Kyler Murray. He could be a top 5 quarterback. If he does both of those things, plus reestablishes his running, that Cardinal offense could be a lot of fun, Brand. Okay. For me at number 8, I also have a guy you've already talked about, but you had him as your honorable mention. I have Justin Herbert finishing inside the top 10 this year. I think, we really saw Justin Herbert get that lethal weapon last year in Ladd McConkey. And this year they come in and add maybe the most efficient college wide receiver last year in Trey Harris out of Ole Miss. So I do think there's a chance that you have a really nice 1-2 punch for Justin Herbert. And of course, I can't quit QJ until he's out of the league, Brant. So you definitely have a field stretcher in Quentin Johnston as well, even if he doesn't catch the ball all the time. If he just does it, sometimes it's touchdowns. But again, the other big thing that I really like out of Los Angeles is they made running the ball a priority this year. We know J.K. Dobbins had some games where he was somewhat relevant last year, but they do have Najee Harris, who they signed early in free agency. They drafted Omarion Hampton. I think that run game gets better, which takes some pressure off of Herbs. I think this is a season where you see him get maybe somewhere in the 45 touchdown range. Doesn't run it a ton, but can occasionally take off and run with those long legs out of Oregon. It's part of his game. You go to Oregon, but I think he's safely inside the top 10. I just don't think he's going to put up flashy enough stats to be inside my top 5.
Okay. All right. My number 7 here is Patrick Mahomes. He's going to get back into the top 10. He did fall out to number 11 in some leagues, depending on your scoring. He fell out to number 11, but he gets Rashee Rice back. He still has one of the best head coaches in the NFL to scheme up. He will, once again, just like you said about Herbert, he will take off and run when needed. A lot of times on like 3rd or 4th down, he's going to end up scampering for 11 yards when he only needs a half a yard because they don't want to tush push him. But I'm going to put Patrick Mahomes. There's not a whole lot to talk about. It is Patrick Mahomes. The man is always up there in the top.
Yeah, so here we are, Brant, at number 7 before you and I are copacetic on one. I also have Patrick Mahomes at 7. Like you said, healthy Rashee Rice, add another weapon in Jalen Royals. Xavier Worthy, as much as I think he's a bust at his current ADP, is still a weapon for Patrick Mahomes. You still have probably the best tight end in football in Travis Kelce. And then like you alluded to, you got a head coach that's just going to get you in positions where you're able to score the ball. So I think, again, it's late June, Brant. It's hard to believe a lot of what's being reported out there. Patrick Mahomes is on record saying, hey, this offense is going to be high flying. It's going to be exciting again this year. We'll see. Last year, this Chiefs offense was not a whole lot of fun to win or to watch play. Excuse me. They did win, which is exciting if you're a Chiefs fan. But if you're a fantasy fan, it wasn't really exciting. I do think they get back to an exciting brand of football this year. I couldn't leave Patrick out of my top 10 as well.
All righty. All right. So my number 6, this is where I'm going to get a little controversial. I'm going to pick a guy here that last time we saw him start more than 14 games, he finished as QB number 7. He's going into what might be the best wide receiver he's ever had in the NFL. Justin Fields is my number 6 quarterback here. Last year in the games he started, QB 19, 24, 12, 1, 16, and 7, throwing the ball to George Pickens and a few other guys that were rolling out of the backfield, and Najee and Warren, and that was about it. Now he's going in. He's got Breece Hall. He's got Garrett Wilson. He's got an offense that believes in him, that went out and paid him to come be the starter, be the guy there. I believe Justin Fields is going to get back into the top 6.
Okay. I listen, Justin Fields didn't come anywhere near my top 10. I'll be honest. I think if Justin Fields ends up being a top 10 quarterback, it's because he has double-digit rushing touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know if there's enough weapons on that team outside of the 2 names you mentioned. Does Malachi Corley take a big step forward? Do they maybe potentially add a wide receiver that's still out there and like Keenan Allen or somebody? There's got to be something else that gets added to that team for me to be like, yeah, that team's got the weapons for Justin Fields to be top 10. So for me right now, and my thoughts on Fields is he's going to have to have that rushing upside be a big part of his game next year for him to get there. But I do like it. It is spicy, Grant. All right. At number 6 for me, I have Jaden Daniels. Again, there's a lot of hype with Jaden Daniels, much going into the second year, much like there was with CJ Stroud going into his second year, and that didn't work out great for a lot of folks. I do think the weapons got slightly better. I'm still a big Deebo Samuel believer. Even if it's just as number 2 to Scary Terry in that offense, I think that does give just one more weapon for Jaden Daniels, who I do think still runs the ball a decent amount. I think that defense is going to be good enough to keep them in games. I am worried about the sophomore slump a smidge with Jaden Daniels, but not enough that I could justifiably drop him out of my top 10.
Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit more about him here in just a little bit. But I'm going to go into my number 5, and this is a guy that I don't believe in the defense, so I believe he's going to have to air the ball out so much, just like he has in the past. Joe Burrow. He still has all of his weapons there. He's got Chase. He's got Higgins. And that defense is taking a hit with their best defensive player holding out still, wanting a trade out of there. They don't have the money to pay him or whatever else. So I think Burrow's going to have to heave the ball quite a bit again this year. He'll use his legs very rarely, but he will use them occasionally. He finished as the QB3 last year. I'm going with Joe Burrow as the top 5 QB.
Okay. All right. I'm wondering if the name I'm getting ready to say is going to be my big shock that you didn't use here, Brant. It just feels like if you don't have him here, you may not have him anywhere. Maybe you're higher on him than I am. I don't know. I have Baker Mayfield as quarterback 5 for the 2025 season. Baker Mayfield finished as the fantasy quarterback number 4 last year. He added arguably one of the best wide receivers in this class in Emeka Egbuka. Still has, almost every other weapon he had last year. The running game is going to be strong again. You got K-Dot and you got Mike Evans. You got Chris Godwin. The one thing that I think may scare me slightly with Baker is that Liam Cohen did leave, but Baker's had so many different offensive coordinators every single year, and he always puts up fantasy numbers at this point. I mean, he's been a fantasy relevant quarterback since he went to Tampa Bay, as much as that sucks to say or sounds weird because he started out as such a bust in Cleveland and then kind of bounced around a little bit, but Baker's found his home in Tampa Bay, Brant, and I've got him, like I said, at number 5 this year, and I don't feel bad about it at all.
I do not have him there. It does scare me with the change of the OC there. Cohen has done quite a bit for quarterbacks. He does scare me a little bit this year. So he is outside of my top 10. Number 4, I have Daniels, who you talked about just a little bit ago. The addition of Debo, I think Brian Robinson's going to be just fine in the backfield. You still have Austin Eckler there. I think Daniels is going to rush the ball a lot again. That RPO was working for him. I believe in Dan Quinn and that Washington team right now, and I believe what they're building there, and I think they have their franchise quarterback, and I think this guy is ready to really burst. I know it sounds weird, but I think he's really ready to burst on the scene and actually solidify his name as a top 5 quarterback in the NFL.
All right. For my number 4, I have Joe Burrow. Like you said, he's just a gunslinger. Still got the offensive cast in town, got the emergence of Chase Brown out of the backfield last year. There's just not a whole lot not to like about the Cincinnati offense. Like you said, that defense is putrid. But I think Joe Burrow is clearly a top 5 quarterback as long as he stays healthy. So I don't have a whole lot else to say about Joe Burrow, except for Joe Burrow is going to do Joe Shiesty things.
Mm-hmm. Number 3, the tush push is still not banned. I got Jalen Hurts as number 3. He's still going to rush the ball a lot. He still has Barkley there who could take a 5-yard pass into the end zone or a screen into the end zone. You got A.J. Brown who can hit the ball deep. You have Devontae Smith who can get it. He'll get Dallas Goedert back possibly for a whole season if they don't trade him. I know he's been in rumors. So I think Hurts is going to finish as a top 3 QB again this year.
That is a take, Brant, I agree with. I also have Jalen Hurts at my number 3 spot. Had that tush push have been banned, he would have been outside of my top 5 or my top 10. I don't believe in Jalen Hurts as a pocket passing quarterback. I don't believe in him really as a passing quarterback. But when you can cheat, walk up to the line of scrimmage, and you're getting a touchdown, rushing touchdown for your quarterback at least once a game by him just getting shoved into the end zone by muscular men, it's almost a fantasy cheat code that you can't avoid. There is still Devonta Smith and Saquon Barkley and A.J. Brown around. So that does help. But I am not a Jalen Hurts believer as a passer. I am a fantasy believer, and that is it. Not the Jalen Hurts fan, but I did have him in my top 3, as bitter of a pill as that is to swallow.
Every fantasy owner's dream for Jalen Hurts to be able to get pushed into the end zone. Number 2, I have Lamar Jackson. You and me have hated on this man as not being a great passer almost his entire career. But I have him falling out of the number 1 spot that he had last year. But Lamar Jackson still has that rushing upside, still has Derrick Henry there. So they have to respect the run. So you can't and then you have to respect what he did last year. I mean, he still threw he's been traded quite a bit in this league. He's threw for 4,000 yards last year. So you do still have to respect that. 41 touchdowns. I do still believe that Lamar Jackson is a top 2 quarterback.
I have Josh Allen at 2, so I'm guessing you and I are flip-flopped at 1 and 2. So we'll make our arguments for that in just a second. Yeah, I have Josh Allen at 2. My thing with Josh Allen is there's not really an alpha in that offense outside of Josh Allen. He is the alpha. Khalil Shakir did some good things. Keon Coleman did some good things. We're hoping for a Dalton Kincaid bounce back. Sounds like there's an awful lot of turmoil with James Cook there in the backfield. So that makes me slightly nervous. Not enough that I'm like worried about it. But here's the thing, Brant. Last year in fairly standard, straightforward leagues, Lamar Jackson outscored Josh Allen by 50 points. And so for me, and this is Josh Allen's best year. That was not last year, the year before. Lamar Jackson beat him that year by 20 points with last year's numbers. Lamar Jackson's receiving core is much the same. Still got Derrick Henry. So I just could not put Josh Allen above Lamar because I think Lamar's got better weapons, better defense. I just couldn't do it. Could not put him in there. I want to hear your Josh Allen argument for one.
I put Josh Allen as 1 because of the James Cook issue that he may end up having to run the ball even more than he has in the past. He may actually be the guy in the backfield to run the ball. I know Cook has shown up to everything, but like you said, the contract dispute is still there. Josh Allen may have to actually take over games. They did add Joshua Palmer as a deep ball threat there. Coleman had a few good games there. Curtis Samuel's there. I know I'm saying a lot of names that there are no true alphas, like you said, but who was the true alpha in Baltimore last year?
The argument would be made that it was honestly a guy that I'm not as infatuated with as you are.
I traded him last year.
Who just got a contract extension, and Rashad Bateman, who finally did what you thought he was capable of all along. The argument's hard to make against him. But again, you got Zay Flowers, who I think if Zay Flowers was in Buffalo would be the clear number 1.
Right.
You've got Mark Andrews, who pretty darn good tight end. And if he slouches off, Isaiah Likely was pretty damn good in Mark Andrews' stead last year. And again, Lamar Jackson's rushing touchdowns came down last year, Brant. He had one of his lower rushing touchdowns of his career at 4 because Derrick Henry's in the backfield. Imagine if Lamar Jackson gets 6 last year. He's 100 points clear of Josh Allen. And listen, and you're 100% right, Brant. You and I hated on Lamar Jackson for years as a passing quarterback. When you throw for 4,000 yards passing, 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, my big mouth gets shut, much like it does eating a sub sandwich. There ain't no room for nothing in there. My foot's in it, Brant. It is what it is. I hate being wrong about some of these fantasy things, but that's what makes the fantasy community amazing. Is you can be wrong on something year to year, or the dynasty setting especially. You can be wrong on something year to year and adapt to it and say, hey, you know what? I wasn't on that train. I should probably be on that train because it's going to run me over if it doesn't. And I know we don't see players repeat often as the number 1 at their position year in and year out. We talk about the running backs, which I'm sure you and I will talk next week. We'll probably both have guys at number 1 that didn't finish there last year. I'd be shocked if we didn't. But it's interesting because Lamar Jackson, I think, has such a clear path to get back to number 1 or to stay number 1 that I think something immaculate would have to happen for Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen's great, but when you finish 50 points behind the number 1 guy and nothing changes in the offseason, it's hard for me to bounce him out. Now, I do have one question for you, Brant, before we sign off for the evening, because I know you do have some commitments you got to attend to this evening. Neither one of us had him there or inside the top 10 or even 11 for that matter, because we both had an honorable mention. I'm curious, is Cam Ward the best rookie quarterback this season as far as, between Jackson Dart and, Jalen Milroe, some of these, potentially Gabriel or Sanders in Cleveland? Is he the best, clearly best finisher at the rookie quarterback position? And if so, how close to that top 10 does he get for you?
I don't think he's even in the top 15. I don't trust that Tennessee offense. I don't trust anything about it right now. I do think he is going to be year 1 for the rookies. I do think he'll be the best QB year 1. And he may sniff the top 15. I don't think he finishes there, though. I don't trust Tennessee at all. And honestly, the one guy that I think may shock a lot of people is the guy that's going to sit his entire first year unless old man Rodgers gets hurt. I think Will Howard could be a guy you and me are discussing as a breakout next year with that offense as they start to work to try to build that offense for a youthful offense. So I do think we're going to be talking about Will Howard a little bit more. I don't know if I believe in Cam Ward in Tennessee. I do think he's a gunslinger. I do think he can get the ball. I just think there's a few years that Tennessee is going to have to build on that team.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you, Brand. I think Tennessee had so many holes. I'm not sure, Cam Ward you couldn't pass on at the number one. I'm not sure that Tennessee didn't try really hard to trade out of that. Probably couldn't get the premium that was established by the Panthers a couple years back for Bryce Young, and so they felt like they had to stay and stand pat. But there's so many holes on that offense and that defense both that I'm just not sure this is good enough. I think Cam Ward is a talented player, but I'm going to say this, Brant. I don't think he finishes inside the top 20, let alone the top 15. I think there's going to be a lot of rookie struggles. There's going to be a lot of pressure on him as a number one overall player, stepping into an offense that has Calvin Ridley, Alec Iamore, just not much. I love Calvin Ridley, but I just
a lot of youth on that offense that has to figure out the NFL game outside of Ridley.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a painful learning curve. I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Tennessee be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft again next year, Brant.
I will say what shocked me before we do sign off is that neither one of us had Bryce Young there in our top 10. As much as we talked about him coming on at the end of last year, I was really surprised that neither one of us were as I do think he probably does finish top 12 because they did have a weapon, but I was really surprised that neither one of us had him up there.
You want to talk about surprises? It took everything in my power not to put Michael Penix in my top 10. I think he's got a chance to finish there. I left him out simply because I did not want to be a homer on our early top 10 rankings. But as the season goes, it's going to be hard for me to keep him out.
Darn it, I should have made my joke then when you thought I had Josh Allen as number one. I was going to tell you I had Michael Penix because I'm a Michael Penix fan. I love the guy. I watched him back in Indiana all the way over into Washington. I do like Michael Penix. I will always cheer for him to do well. I'm kind of at least glad that I have a friend that is a Falcons fan, so I at least have a reason to cheer for him.
You got two of us, buddy.
One's my kid.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so I think that does do it for us. Like I said, I had alluded to on the beginning of the show, there is some scheduling conflicts. I think next week you guys may get to see Fatboy Bo come on and put out his My Guys episode. Some guys that I'm, not leaving drafts without going into next year. There's, like I said, and then I think we'll get back into running backs 2 weeks from now potentially. And then, start moving on and go. Eventually, we're going to have to cover a startup dynasty draft too, as we get really into the swing of that thing, as training camps start moving. But I think that's all I got for this week.
That's all I got. I'm gonna work on my guys because maybe we'll just put both solos out next week. It's me. I'll admit it. I have something going on next Wednesday, so Bo will have to go by himself. But I'm gonna try to get mine out there too. That way we give you guys both of our takes on my guys. But that is all we have for today. So as always, stay hungry.
Stay fat, my friends.